Wheelchair-bound boy reunites with long-lost horse in emotional reunion. Tyler Bennett wiped away the tears that stubbornly streamed down his freckled face as his grandmother Margaret pushed his wheelchair along the dirt road, bordering Clear Springs Ranch. It had been 3 years since he last visited this part of Lexington in the Kentucky countryside, ever since the accident that changed his life forever. That's when he saw a black lightning bolt streak across the pasture beyond the wooden fence. The boy's heart pounded like a runaway drum. That silhouette, that trot, that white patch on the chest. It couldn't be. "Grandma, stop, please." "Stop!" Tyler shouted, leaning so far forward in his chair he nearly toppled. "It's Thunder! My Thunder is alive!" Margaret braked the wheelchair, confused, as her grandson frantically pointed at the majestic black horse, now watching them from a distance. "Tyler, sweetheart, you must be mistaken," said Margaret, adjusting her glasses on her wrinkled face. "Thunder was sent for treatment in another state after the accident, remember? Your Uncle Richard handled everything." "No, Grandma, it's him," Tyler insisted, his green eyes shining with emotion. "Look at the white patch on his chest. It's shaped like a four-pointed star. No other horse has that." Margaret stepped closer to the fence, squinting to get a better look at the animal. The black horse kept its distance, but its proud stance brought back painful memories for the elderly woman. It was on that very horse that her grandson had suffered the accident that left him paralyzed below the knees. "Let's go, Tyler. We're late for your physical therapy," Margaret said, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. "No, Grandma, I need to see him up close." Tyler tried to move the wheelchair himself, but the soft earth made it difficult. Then a middle-aged man in a faded plaid shirt and straw hat approached from the other side of the fence. "Can I help you?" he asked, eyeing the scene curiously. "I'm Anthony, the foreman at Clear Springs Ranch." "Good afternoon, sir," Margaret replied politely. "We were just passing by. My grandson thought he recognized one of the horses." "That black one over there?" Anthony pointed. "That's Shadow. He arrived here about 8 months ago. The boss bought him at an auction in Louisville." "It's not Shadow, it's Thunder," Tyler insisted, tears in his eyes. "He was mine. We grew up together." Anthony scratched his graying beard, studying the red-haired boy in the wheelchair with interest. "Well, that animal's skittish. Won't let anyone get too close. Dr. Williams has tried everything, but he only lets the groom feed him and clean his stall." "Because he only trusts me." Tyler was so worked up that Margaret feared he might have an episode. "Please, sir, let me see him up close." Anthony hesitated, glancing at Margaret, who gave a subtle shake of her head. "Listen, kid, that horse, 'tis dangerous. He's already thrown 2 workers and nearly trampled one. I can't let you get near him." Tyler's face crumpled at those words. This wasn't how he remembered his companion, the gentle colt who used to follow him everywhere on his grandparents' farm, before everything changed. "Come on, dear," Margaret urged, turning the wheelchair around. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Anthony." As they moved away, Tyler couldn't tear his eyes from the black horse, which now walked parallel to them along the fence, keeping its distance but with ears pricked forward. "He recognized me, Grandma," Tyler murmured. "I saw it in his eyes." Margaret sighed, knowing that for the next few weeks her grandson would talk of nothing else. It was always like this when something rekindled memories of life before the accident, before his parents left for Ireland in search of work, before the debts that now threatened to swallow what was left of the Bennett family's small farm. The next morning, Tyler woke before sunrise. Through the window of his simple bedroom, he could see the sliver of sky shifting from deep black to a grayish blue. He had slept poorly, dreaming of thunder, of the days when he would run through the pastures, of the feeling of the wind on his face while riding. He dragged himself into the wheelchair with the skill acquired through 3 years of daily practice. He dressed himself, proud of his independence. His grandmother was still asleep in the next room, and he didn't want to wake her. At 72, Margaret Bennett carried on her face every one of the worries she faced to keep her grandson with even the bare minimum of comfort. Tyler slid silently into the kitchen. On the table, he saw the envelopes of bills with red "Final Notice" stripes. He knew those marks well. Ever since his parents left for Ireland, promising to send money that rarely arrived, their financial situation had only worsened. He looked out the kitchen window toward Clear Springs Ranch, less than a mile away. It was impossible to see the pastures from that distance, but he knew Thunder was there. He knew with the certainty only a child could have. He grabbed a few apples from the fruit bowl and put them in his school backpack. Thunder had always been crazy about apples if he could just get close enough. When Margaret walked into the kitchen, she found her grandson already ready for school. A rare sight for a boy who usually needed to be woken up 3 times. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said, surprised. "Up early today?" "I dreamed about—" "Thunder, Grandma," Tyler replied, trying to sound casual. "I think I'll take some apples for a snack at school." Margaret watched her grandson carefully as she prepared breakfast. She recognized that glint in his eyes, that determined expression. It was the same one he had before the accident, whenever he set his mind to something and nothing could change it. "Tyler, about yesterday," she began hesitantly. "I know it's him, Grandma," the boy interrupted. "I know Uncle Richard said Thunder was sent to a specialized clinic after the accident, but I never really believed it. And now he's there, at the ranch." Margaret sighed, pouring warm milk for her grandson. "Even if it is him, Tyler, what do you plan to do? That horse won't let anyone near him, and after what happened—" She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. The accident always hung between them like an unexorcised ghost. Tyler at 9 years old, riding Thunder as he had since he was 6. A sudden noise, the startled animal, the uncontrolled gallop, the fall, the long weeks in the hospital, the diagnosis that changed everything. "It wasn't his fault, Grandma," Tyler said, as he had hundreds of times over the past 3 years. "Someone scared him on purpose, and now he's scared again. That's why he won't let anyone near him." The school bus honked outside. Normally Margaret would walk her grandson to the gate, but today Tyler insisted on going alone. "I'm staying at Marcus's house after school," he said, already at the door. "His mom will bring me back later, okay?" Before Margaret could ask more, Tyler was already outside, skillfully maneuvering his wheelchair along the garden's stone path. On the adapted school bus, Tyler sat next to his best friend, Marcus Johnson, a skinny black boy with endless energy. "Hey man, you really coming to my place today?" Marcus asked, confused. "Not really," Tyler whispered, making sure the driver, old Joe, couldn't hear. "I need you to cover for me. I'm going to Clear Springs Ranch." "What? Why?" "I found Thunder." Tyler's eyes sparkled. "He's there at the ranch. I need to get close to him." Marcus's eyes widened. "Your horse, the one from the accident, but your uncle said—" "My uncle lied," Tyler cut in. "I don't know exactly what happened, but Thunder's there, and I'm going to prove it's him." Throughout class, Tyler could barely focus. Mrs. Davis even asked if he was feeling okay, noticing his unusual restlessness. When it was time to leave, he approached old Joe before Marcus could come up with some awkward excuse. "Old Joe, you know Clear Springs Ranch, right?" he asked innocently. The 60-something-year-old bus driver adjusted his worn-out cap as he helped Tyler up the school bus ramp. "Sure do, kid. My buddy Anthony works there." Tyler felt his heart race. It was an unbelievable coincidence. "Mr. Anthony, the one with the straw hat. I met him yesterday." "That's the one," old Joe chuckled. "Been working there over 20 years. "Old Joe," Tyler gathered all his courage. "Could you drop me off there today? Just today. I saw a horse that used to be mine before the accident. I really want to see him up close." The old driver scratched the back of his neck, hesitating. "Does your grandma know about this kid?" Tyler looked away. "Not yet, I just wanted to be sure first. If it's not Thunder, I don't want to upset her for no reason." Old Joe sighed, recognizing the determination in the boy's eyes. "Just today, got it? And I'll call Anthony to keep an eye on you. I'll be back to pick you up at 5 sharp, not a minute later." Tyler could barely contain his excitement. When the school bus stopped at the entrance of Clear Springs Ranch, his heart felt like it might leap out of his chest. Old Joe helped him down and quickly spoke to the security guard at the gate, who nodded after a brief phone call. "Anthony's already on his way to get you," said the guard, a tall, dark-skinned man with a friendly smile. "You can wait over there in the shade." Tyler thanked him, positioning his wheelchair under a sprawling mango tree. Minutes later, he saw the familiar figure of Anthony walking toward him. "So, "You're old Joe's grandson?" the foreman asked, clearly confused as he recognized the boy from the day before. "Actually, no," Tyler admitted, blushing, "but I really needed to see Shadow again." Anthony crossed his arms, sizing up the situation. "Look, kid, I don't usually approve of lies." His tone was stern, but his eyes held a glimmer of understanding. "But since you're here, we'll take a quick look at the horse. Just don't get too close, got it? He's dangerous." Tyler nodded, trying to hold back his anticipation as Anthony pushed his wheelchair along a well-maintained gravel path. Clear Springs Ranch was much bigger than it looked from the road. Vast green pastures stretched in every direction, with impeccably painted white fences. Horses of different colors and sizes grazed peacefully under the autumn sky. "Dr. Williams isn't here today," Anthony explained. "He went to New York for business, otherwise I wouldn't be able to let you in like this." "Who's Dr. Williams?" Tyler asked, soaking in every detail of the place. "The owner of the ranch. Bought it about 3 years ago after the previous owner went bankrupt. Invested heavily, turned it into one of the best jumping horse breeders in the state. 3 years. Exactly when Thunder had disappeared." A shiver ran down Tyler's spine. Finally, they reached a more secluded pasture, where a single black horse grazed alone. "There he is," Anthony pointed. "We keep him separate from the others. Doesn't do well in groups." Tears welled up in Tyler's eyes. Even from a distance, he had no doubt. That was Thunder, his Thunder. The same elegant build, the same silky black mane, the same strong legs that seemed made for long runs. And, most of all, the unmistakable white star-shaped mark on his chest. "It's him," Tyler whispered, more to himself than to Anthony. "It's Thunder." "Look, kid," Anthony said gently, "a lot of black horses look alike from far away, and this one's got papers, came with all the registration and everything." "Can I get closer?" Tyler asked, ignoring the comment. "Just a little bit?" Anthony hesitated, but something in the boy's expression moved him. "Only up to the second fence, no further, and I'm coming with you." As they approached the middle fence, the black horse lifted its head, ears immediately alert, its dark eyes fixed intently on the boy. "Thunder!" called Tyler, his voice choked with emotion. "It's me, buddy!" The horse let out a soft whinny. Stepping back a few paces, it didn't seem scared, just cautious. "Is it just me, or is he more interested than usual?" murmured Anthony, surprised. Normally, he'd have already bolted to the other side of the pasture. Tyler pulled a red apple from his backpack and held it out over the fence. "Look what I brought for you, buddy, your favorite." For a magical moment, the horse raised its head, sniffing the air. It took one hesitant step toward them, then another. Anthony held his breath beside Tyler. In 3 years at Clear Springs Ranch, he'd never seen Shadow willingly approach anyone. When the animal was just a few feet away, the sharp sound of an engine cut through the air. The horse reared up, whinnying in fright, and galloped away. Tyler let out a frustrated cry. "So close," he lamented, watching his friend disappear into the distance. A tractor appeared on the adjacent path, driven by a young man who waved apologetically when he saw Anthony's expression. "See that?" said the foreman, amazed. "He was really coming, never seen that before." Tyler smiled, a new glimmer of hope in his green eyes. "Can I come back tomorrow?" Over the next 2 weeks, Tyler managed to convince old Joe to let him stay at the ranch after school. Anthony, intrigued by the reaction of the usually skittish Shadow, agreed to supervise the visits, as long as Tyler kept a safe distance. Each day, the boy brought apples and talked to the horse. With every visit, Thunder came a little closer, recognizing the voice that had once been so familiar. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. At home, Tyler kept his visits a secret. He knew his grandmother wouldn't approve, not just because of the danger, but because she feared he'd get hurt emotionally if his hopes were dashed. The years after the accident had been hard on everyone. On his 10th visit, the moment Tyler had been waiting for finally arrived. Thunder came close enough to take the apple straight from his hand. The soft touch of the animal's lips on his palm made the boy cry with emotion. Anthony, watching from a few feet away, shook his head in amazement. "Never seen anything like it," the foreman remarked. "It's like he really knows you." Tyler smiled through his tears. Because he does, Mr. Anthony. He's my Thunder. That afternoon, as Tyler walked back to the main gate where old Joe was waiting, an elegant woman in her 30s crossed his path. She wore riding pants and boots, her dark brown hair tied in a practical ponytail. "So you're the boy who tamed Shadow?" she asked with a curious smile. "My father told me about you." "Your father?" "Dr. Robert Williams, the owner of the ranch. I'm Heather Williams, the vet in charge of the animals' well-being here." Tyler flushed, afraid he was in trouble. "Sorry if I wasn't supposed to be here." Heather laughed, a light, crystalline sound. "On the contrary, I'm fascinated. Daddy said in 3 years. No one's ever gotten that close to that horse. How did you do it?" "He was mine," Tyler explained hesitantly. "Before the accident. His name's Thunder, not Shadow." Heather frowned, intrigued. "Interesting. Daddy bought that horse at an auction in Louisville, but with almost no information about his past. We only knew he was excellent for jumping, but traumatized." Tyler's heart raced. "Could you check if he has a small scar on the inside of his right hind leg and another birthmark, like a white crescent-shaped spot under his mane?" Heather studied him with growing interest. "I'll check that first thing tomorrow. Why don't you come back after school? I'd like to observe your interaction with him." The next day, Tyler arrived at Clear Springs Ranch, buzzing with anticipation. Heather was waiting in the main office, an elegant space decorated with trophies and photos of champion horses. "I checked what you asked," she said without preamble. "The horse has exactly those markings you described." Tyler felt a wave of vindication rush through him. "I knew it. It's Thunder. How did he end up at an auction?" Heather asked, genuinely curious. "If he was your horse..." Tyler lowered his eyes, nervously fidgeting with the wheels of his chair. "After the accident, I was in the hospital for a long time. When I got home, my Uncle Richard said Thunder had been sent to a specialized clinic in another state for treatment. I never fully believed that story." "Is your uncle your guardian?" "No. I live with my grandma. My parents work in Ireland. Uncle Richard only helped with finances after Grandpa passed." Tyler hesitated. "But after the accident, he showed up less and less." Heather jotted something on a notepad, her expression thoughtful. "Tyler, I'd like to try something today. If Thunder, really was your horse, maybe we can help him overcome his trauma." That afternoon, Heather led Tyler to a small covered arena. Anthony was already there, holding Thunder by a long lead. The horse seemed nervous but not as agitated as Heather had expected. "Take it slow," she instructed. "Talk to him first." Tyler called out softly, and to Heather's surprise, the horse immediately turned his head toward the voice. His dark eyes fixed on the boy, ears pricked forward in interest. "Yes," Tyler exclaimed. "You remember me, don't you, boy?" For an hour, Tyler spoke to the horse, offering apples and recounting stories from their time together. Gradually, Thunder relaxed, inching closer until he finally let the boy touch his muzzle. "Remarkable," Heather murmured, documenting everything with her camera. "In all my years as a vet, I've never seen such a strong connection." In the days that followed, Tyler and Thunder rebuilt their lost bond. Heather, fascinated by this unique reunion, began researching the horse's past. "I need your help, Tyler," she said after a week of visits. "I want to understand what happened to Thunder between the accident and his arrival here. Do you have any documentation on him? Proof of ownership, vaccination records, anything?" Tyler bit his lip, thinking, "Grandma must have kept something, but she doesn't know about my visits." "Maybe it's time to tell her," Heather suggested, gently. "If we confirm this is your horse, we need to figure out how he was sold without your family's consent." That night, Tyler mustered the courage to tell his grandmother about his secret visits to the ranch. Margaret listened quietly, her wrinkled face hardening at the mention of Richard, her youngest son. "So you think your uncle lied about what happened to Thunder?" she asked when Tyler finished. "I'm not sure, Grandma, but Dr. Heather wants to see Thunder's papers. She said there might be something wrong with how he was sold." Margaret rose slowly, her knees protesting. She walked to an old wooden chest in the corner of the room and pulled out a box of documents. After a few minutes of searching, she handed a folder to her grandson. "Here's everything about Thunder." Your grandfather was very organized with these things. Tyler opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were the Foles' birth records from the old Bennett farm, vaccination certificates, and even photos of a younger Tyler riding a still-growing Thunder. His heart tightened with the memories. "Grandma, is there a bill of sale here?" he asked. Flipping through the papers, Margaret shook her head. "There shouldn't be. Thunder was never officially sold. Richard said the Horse Rehabilitation Center agreed to keep him while treatments lasted." Tyler felt his stomach drop. If there was no bill of sale, how had Thunder ended up at an auction in Louisville? The next morning, Heather examined the documents with professional care. Her expression grew more serious as she reviewed the papers. "Tyler, this is very important," she finally said. "These documents prove the horse legally belongs to your family. If he was sold without authorization—" "It was my uncle, wasn't it?" Tyler asked, the pain of betrayal clear in his young voice. Heather sighed. "We can't say for sure without proof, but I'll look into the purchase history. Dad keeps detailed records of all acquisitions." 2 days later, Heather called a meeting with Tyler and Margaret at the ranch office. Dr. Robert Williams, a tall, distinguished man with graying hair and eyes identical to his daughter's, greeted them formally. "Mrs. Bennett, thank you for coming," he said, motioning to the comfortable chairs. "Heather explained the situation and we've conducted a full investigation." Margaret nervously clutched her worn purse in her lap. "Did you find anything about Thunder?" Dr. Williams nodded, his face grave. "Unfortunately, yes, the horse was sold by a middleman named Charles Duncan to the Louisville auction. He claimed to have bought the animal from Richard Bennett in a private transaction." Margaret paled. "Richard sold Thunder, but he said the horse would be treated—" "The worst part," Dr. Williams continued, consulting a file, "is that the sale happened just 3 weeks after Tyler's accident. The story about treatment in another state was clearly fabricated." Tyler felt tears stream down his face. The uncle he'd admired so much had lied, had sold his best friend while he was still fighting in the hospital. "Why?" the boy whispered. "Why would he do that?" Dr. Williams and Heather exchanged uneasy glances. "The amount paid by the middleman was well below market value," Heather explained gently. "That usually happens when someone needs quick cash." "Gambling debts," Margaret murmured, as if an important puzzle piece had finally clicked into place. "Richard always had that problem. After the accident, he started borrowing money more often. Said it was for Tyler's treatments." A heavy silence fell over the room. Tyler wiped his tears, a new determination growing in his chest. "What happens now?" he asked, looking at Dr. Williams. "Thunder is legally yours." The ranch owner smiled for the first time since the meeting began. "Well, technically the sale was fraudulent. The horse still belongs to your family, however, we paid a considerable sum for him," Heather added kindly, "and we've invested in his recovery and training. We can't afford to repay you," Margaret said, her voice shaky. "We can barely keep our small property running." Dr. Williams raised a hand in a calming gesture. "I'm not asking for repayment, Mrs. Bennett. Heather told me about the extraordinary bond between your grandson and the animal. In 30 years of raising horses, I've never seen anything like it." He paused, looking directly at Tyler. "I have a proposal." Thunder clearly responds to Tyler in a unique way. "I'd like your grandson to come to the ranch regularly to help with the horse's full recovery. In return, we can work out a shared ownership agreement for the animal." Tyler's eyes shone with renewed hope. "You'd let me keep him?" "Even better," Heather interjected, smiling. "We're starting a therapeutic riding program here at the ranch. Tyler, you could be our youth consultant, helping other kids with your experience." "What about school?" Margaret asked, concerned. "Just a few afternoons a week after classes," Heather assured her, "and we can arrange transportation." Would he get paid?" Margaret asked hesitantly, financial worries ever present. Dr. Williams nodded. "Of course, it's real work with real responsibilities. As for Thunder, we can formalize an agreement where he stays at the ranch for proper care, but with guaranteed visiting and interaction rights for Tyler." For the first time in 3 years, Tyler felt a future opening before him, a future where his wheelchair wasn't a limitation, where his special bond with Thunder became not a symbol of loss, but of new possibilities. "Can I see him now?" he asked, barely containing his emotion. Heather smiled. "Of course, he's in the indoor arena waiting for you." When Tyler entered the arena, Thunder whinnied softly, immediately recognizing his old friend. The horse trotted up to the wheelchair, lowering his head for familiar affection. Margaret, watching from the entrance, couldn't hold back tears seeing pure joy on her grandson's face. "It's a fresh start for both of you," Heather said emotionally. Tyler stroked the horse's neck, feeling the silky texture of the black mane between his fingers. "Hear that, buddy? We're together again, and this time nothing will separate us." 6 months had passed since Tyler and Thunder's reunion. The boy and horse partnership had become the flagship attraction of Clear Springs Ranch's therapeutic riding program. What began as small sessions with just 3 children had grown into a respected project serving families across the region. Tyler, now a newly turned 13-year-old, had gained not just purpose but confidence. His wheelchair, once seen as a limitation, became part of his unique identity as an assistant instructor. The children adored him, seeing him as an example of perseverance. Thunder, meanwhile, seemed to have found his calling. The once skittish horse showed extraordinary patience with children with disabilities, as if he perfectly understood his mission. "It's amazing how he's changed," Anthony remarked to Heather as they watched Tyler leading a session with a 5-year-old girl who had cerebral palsy. "Seems like a different animal." "It's not just the horse that's changed," Heather replied, smiling as she watched Tyler confidently guide the child's family. "It's a mutual transformation." Life at the Bennett family's small property had improved too. The salary Tyler earned as the program's youth consultant, though modest, helped supplement Margaret's retirement. More importantly, joy had returned to their home, bringing hope for the future. That Saturday afternoon, after the last therapy session, Tyler stayed alone with Thunder in the arena. It was his favorite time of the week, when they could simply be together without expectations or obligations. "You know, buddy," Tyler said, stroking the horse's muzzle, "I never imagined we'd be here like this." Thunder snorted softly as if in agreement. Tyler looked up at the sound of approaching footsteps. Heather entered the arena accompanied by an elegant woman around 60, whom he'd never seen before. "Tyler, this is Dr. Barbara Foster," Heather introduced. "She specializes in advanced therapeutic riding and came to learn about our program." "Pleasure to meet you, Dr. Foster," Tyler greeted politely. The woman smiled, carefully observing the interaction between the boy and the horse. "The pleasure is mine, Tyler. Heather told me about your history with Thunder. I must say I'm impressed." Dr. Foster stepped closer to the horse, which remained calm under her professional gaze. "This animal has exceptional structure for therapeutic work," she remarked, examining the horse's posture. "His gait must be very smooth and rhythmic, ideal for neuromuscular stimulation." "It is," Tyler confirmed enthusiastically. "The kids love riding him because he barely sways." Barbara turned to Heather. "Have you considered expanding this program? There's funding available for innovative therapeutic riding projects, serving vulnerable populations." Heather looked surprised. "We've thought about it, but resources are limited. We'd need more space, more professionals, and more horses trained like Thunder," Barbara added thoughtfully, "which is the hardest part to secure." Tyler listened to the conversation with growing interest. "Dr. Foster, do you think Thunder could help train other horses?" he asked, an idea forming in his mind. The specialist looked at the boy with admiration. "That's an excellent question, Tyler. Horses are herd animals. They learn by observation. A well-trained, calm horse like Thunder could absolutely serve as a model for others. What if—" Tyler hesitated, his heart racing at the boldness of his thought. "What if we used Thunder to establish a specialized training program for therapeutic riding? We could document everything, create a method." Heather's eyes widened, immediately grasping the boy's vision. "A training protocol based on Thunder's experience. Tyler, that's brilliant." Dr. Foster seemed equally impressed. "There's a huge demand for properly trained therapy horses. If you could systematize this process, you wouldn't just expand the program here. You could share the knowledge with other centers." In the days that followed, Tyler's idea took shape. Dr. Williams, initially skeptical, was eventually convinced after a carefully prepared presentation by Tyler and Heather. A small initial grant was approved, allowing the selection of 2 new horses for the experimental training program. Tyler, now officially promoted to Junior Project Coordinator, threw himself into the work. His afternoons were filled with training, sessions, progress documentation, and of course special moments with Thunder. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, on a particularly hot January afternoon, as Tyler led one of the new horses around the ring with Thunder's help as a model, he saw an unfamiliar car parking near the main office. His heart leaped when he recognized the passengers, his parents, finally returning from Ireland after nearly 4 years. Claire and Michael Bennett had left when Tyler was just 9 years old, promising to earn enough money abroad to give the family a better life. What was supposed to be a temporary absence stretched into years, with sporadic visits and video calls that grew increasingly rare. Tyler watched from a distance as Heather greeted them and pointed in his direction. He didn't know how to feel. Part of him wanted to run into his parents' arms. Another part, more mature and perhaps wounded, wanted to stay right where he was in the world he'd built without them. "Son!" called his mother, walking quickly toward him, her face marked by conflicting emotions. "Look at you." Tyler nodded to Anthony, who understood the signal to take control of the horse in training. Then, taking a deep breath, he turned his wheelchair to face the reunion. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Dad." Claire hesitated as she approached, clearly unsure whether to hug him. Michael stayed slightly behind, discomfort evident on his face. "Your grandmother told us you were working here," said Claire, trying to sound cheerful. "Something with horses, right?" "I'm the youth coordinator for the therapeutic riding program," replied Tyler, feeling a pang of pride at seeing the surprise on his parents' faces. "This is Thunder, remember him?" Michael stepped closer, staring in amazement at the majestic black horse. "Thunder? But I thought he'd been sent away for treatment after the—" He trailed off, avoiding mention of the accident. "Uncle Richard lied," Tyler said simply. "He sold Thunder to pay off gambling debts. We found out 6 months ago." His parents exchanged shocked glances. "What do you mean?" asked Claire, pale. "Richard assured us." "He assured us of a lot of things," Tyler interrupted, unable to hide the bitterness in his voice, "including that he was using the money you sent for my treatments." A painful silence fell between them. Finally, Michael stepped forward, kneeling to meet his son at eye level. "Tyler, we know we haven't been the parents you deserved, but we're back. For good." "To stay?" asked Tyler, hating how small and hopeful his voice sounded. "To stay," confirmed Claire, joining her husband. "We've saved enough. We want to rebuild our lives here as a family." Tyler felt conflicting emotions churning in his chest. The years of absence couldn't just be erased, but part of him desperately longed for his parents' return. "Are you staying at Grandma's place?" he asked, practical. "If you'd like," replied Michael, "or we could find somewhere bigger, closer to town." "No," Tyler said firmly. "Our home is there. Grandma needs us. And it's close to the ranch." Claire smiled, tears in her eyes. "Then that's where we'll be." In the days that followed, the Bennett family began their slow process of rebuilding. Tyler watched cautiously as his parents readjusted to life in the Kentucky countryside after years in Europe. The first weeks were marked by moments of tension and discomfort, with long silences during meals and surface-level conversations. "Son, can we talk?" Claire asked one evening, finding Tyler on the porch gazing at the stars. The boy nodded, not taking his eyes off the night sky. "Why did you really come back?" he asked bluntly. "Was it out of pity?" "Because you found out Uncle Richard lied about the money for my treatments." Claire sat beside her son, her teary eyes reflecting the distant lights. "It wasn't pity, Tyler. It was regret." She took a deep breath. "In Ireland, we lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of Dublin. Your father worked 12-hour days at a construction site. I cooked at 2 different restaurants. We saved every penny." "For what?" Tyler interrupted. "To bring you and Grandma there at first," she admitted. "After the accident, to pay for the best treatments, the best therapies. We believed everything Richard told us." She paused, wiping a tear. By the time we realized something was wrong, so much time had passed. Her voice broke. We were afraid to come back and find you hated us for leaving. Tyler absorbed, her words feeling a mix of conflicting emotions. I don't hate you, he finally said, but I can't pretend it didn't hurt growing up without my parents around, especially after the accident. We're not asking you to, Claire replied, carefully taking her son's hand. We're just asking for the chance to rebuild our family day by day. Can we try? Tyler squeezed his mother's hand, a small gesture that meant a huge first step. In the days that followed, the family dynamic began to shift subtly. Claire, who had worked as a cook in Ireland, took charge of marketing the homemade jams and preserves that Margaret had always made just for family use. Michael, using the skills he'd gained in Irish construction, started renovating the small property. At Clear Springs Ranch, the training program was thriving. The two new horses responded well to the method developed by Tyler, Heather, and Dr. Foster. What had begun as an experimental project was taking shape as a structured program with defined protocols and measurable results. One quiet afternoon, as Tyler worked with Butterscotch, one of the program's new horses, Heather approached accompanied by a girl about 8 years old in a motorized wheelchair. The little girl had curly hair tied in 2 braids and dark eyes that observed everything with intense curiosity. Tyler, this is Olivia, Heather introduced. She came from Lexington specially to see our program. Hi, Olivia, Tyler greeted, with a smile. Is this your first time seeing horses up close? The girl shook her head but stayed silent, nervously biting her lower lip. Olivia had a bad experience at another therapeutic riding center, explained her mother, a tired-looking woman. One of the horses spooked, and she got really scared. It's been 6 months since she refused to try again. But we heard about your program and how you work with horses who've also had trauma, Olivia's father added. We thought maybe... I completely understand, Tyler said, turning his full attention to the girl. You know, Olivia, Thunder was really scared after our accident too. He wouldn't let anyone near him for the longest time. Olivia's eyes flickered with interest. What did you do? She asked, speaking for the first time. First, I respected his time, Tyler explained, maneuvering his chair to sit beside her. I didn't force anything. I just came to talk to him every day, bringing apples, which he loves, and telling stories. Telling stories to a horse? Olivia sounded skeptical but intrigued. Yep, they don't understand words like we do, but they feel the tone of our voice. They know when we're calm and confident. Tyler paused. Want to meet Butterscotch? He's the newest in our program and still learning. Maybe you two could learn together. Olivia hesitated, glancing at her parents for reassurance. We don't have to get close today, Tyler assured her. We can just watch from a distance like I did with Thunder at first. The cautious approach worked. Olivia agreed to observe while Tyler and Anthony worked with Butterscotch at a safe distance. By the end of the session, the girl even accepted, offering the horse a carrot, as long as Tyler stayed right beside her. She smiled, Olivia's mother whispered to Heather, emotional. I haven't seen her smile near horses since the accident. In the weeks that followed, Olivia became a regular at the ranch. Her slow but steady journey to overcoming fear inspired Tyler to develop a specific protocol for traumatized children, expanding the program's reach even further. You have a special gift, Tyler, Heather remarked one afternoon, watching as Olivia confidently brushed Butterscotch's mane under supervision. It's not just technique or method, it's empathy. I think it's because I've been on both sides, he reflected. I know what it's like to be afraid and in a wheelchair, but I also understand horses and their fears. Heather nodded thoughtfully. That makes me wonder, have you ever considered documenting your approach more thoroughly? Not just the technical training methods for the horses, but your philosophy of connection? The question planted a seed that would blossom in the coming months. Tyler began recording not only training protocols, but also personal reflections on overcoming challenges, the bond between humans and animals, and accepting limitations as gateways to new possibilities. Word spread, attracting visitors from other therapeutic riding centers eager to learn the technique. One particularly busy afternoon, after a demonstration for visitors from New York, Tyler noticed his father watching from a distance. When the guests had left, Michael approached hesitantly. "You're amazing with those animals, son," he said, genuinely impressed. "I never imagined—" "What? That I could do something like this from a wheelchair?" Tyler challenged, old resentment surfacing. Michael sighed, accepting the jab as deserved. "Yes, partly, and I'm ashamed of that now. When we got the news about your accident, He paused, choosing his words. "I ran away. Not physically, we were already in Ireland, but emotionally. I didn't know how to handle it." Tyler looked at his father, seeing for the first time the vulnerability behind the absent figure of recent years. "It was hard at first," the boy admitted, "but Grandma never treated me differently. And now, with Thunder, I've discovered I can do things I never thought possible." Michael watched the black horse grazing peacefully in the adjacent field. "Your mother wants to make up for lost time, you know. She talks about remodeling the house, buying an adapted car." He smiled, sadly. "I think deep down we know we can't buy those years back." Tyler reflected for a moment, the maturity gained through his trials evident on his young face. "No, you can't. But we can build something new from here." That evening, during dinner, the reunited Bennett family discussed future plans around the small farmhouse table. The simple spread, now filled with dishes prepared by Claire, marked the beginning of a new chapter. "Dr. Williams offered to buy our preserves and jams for the ranch store," Margaret said, passing the salad to her son. "He said tourists and visitors love local handmade goods." "That's wonderful, Mom," Claire exclaimed. "We could expand production. Michael's already started restoring the old shed to use as a commercial kitchen." Tyler watched his grandmother's renewed enthusiasm. Over the years, Margaret had aged quickly under the weight of worries. Now, with her children's return and improved finances, she seemed younger and more energetic. "What about your Uncle Richard?" Michael asked, broaching the subject everyone avoided. "Does he know we're back?" A silence fell over the table. It was Tyler who finally answered. "I think we should talk to him," he said, surprising everyone. "Not for what he did, but for ourselves, to close that chapter." Margaret looked at her grandson with pride and concern. "Are you sure, dear?" "After what we learned about Thunder," Tyler nodded. "I am. I don't want to carry anger forever, besides." He paused thoughtfully. Maybe he needs help with his own problems, too. A week after the conversation about Richard, Tyler found his uncle working alone in the partially restored shed, now being converted into a commercial kitchen for the family's products. "Need help?" the boy asked, wheeling closer. Richard turned, surprised by the offer. He was installing shelves, sweat dripping down his gaunt face. "Of course," he replied cautiously. "Could you hand me those screws?" Tyler picked up the indicated box and watched his uncle work. For a few minutes, only the sound of the drill filled the silence between them. "Why did you do it, Uncle?" Tyler finally asked, cutting straight to the point. "Sell Thunder while I was still in the hospital?" Richard turned off the tool and sat on a wooden stool, rubbing his calloused hands over his face. "I owed money to dangerous people in Cincinnati," he began, his voice low. "After your accident, they became more insistent. They even came here once when you and your grandmother were in the hospital." He paused, visibly uncomfortable with the memories. "I thought I was protecting you," he continued. "The horse seemed like the quickest solution. At the time, I thought you might never ride again." "So you decided for me," Tyler concluded, the hurt clear in his voice. "Yes," Richard admitted, looking his nephew in the eyes for the first time. "It was selfish and cowardly. Then one lie led to another. The money your parents sent, I used part of it to pay more debts, gambling that I could recover everything and fix the situation before anyone found out." Tyler processed the confession, at least appreciating the belated honesty. "Are you still gambling?" he asked directly. Richard shook his head. 192 days clean," he replied, a hint of quiet pride in his voice. "I go to Gamblers Anonymous meetings in Lexington 3 times a week. It's hard, but I'm trying." Tyler nodded, unsure how to respond. Part of him wanted to hold on to the resentment, but another part understood that addiction was a sickness. "You know what's the cruelest irony?" Richard continued, turning back to the shelves. "If I'd just asked for help back then, told the family the truth, I probably could have spared us all years of pain, including yourself," Tyler observed. Richard looked at his nephew in surprise, touched by the unexpected empathy. "Including myself," he agreed softly. The conversation didn't magically erase years of hurt, but it planted a small seed of understanding. In the weeks that followed, Tyler noticed how his uncle worked tirelessly around the property, not just as a way to make amends, but as personal therapy. It wasn't immediate or easy forgiveness, but the beginning of a long road to reconciliation. Richard, on the condition that he continued seeking professional help for his gambling addiction, was gradually reintegrated into the family with caution. Summer gave way to fall, and life at the small Bennett farm found a new balance. Tyler divided his time between school, the ever-growing therapeutic riding program, and special moments with Thunder. One particularly pleasant October afternoon, while training the newest horse added to the program, Tyler was surprised by an unexpected visit. Dr. Williams, who usually left the project management to Heather, appeared at the arena with a group of well-dressed people. "Tyler," he called, waving. "Could you come here a moment?" The boy wheeled his chair over to the group, noticing the air of importance around them. "These are representatives from the American Therapeutic Riding Association," Dr. Williams introduced. "They've come to see your training method." A middle-aged woman stepped forward, extending her hand. "I'm Dr. Catherine Reynolds, Program Development Director for the association. The work you're doing here is remarkable, Tyler." Tyler blushed, unused to so much official attention. "Thank you, but it's a team effort. Heather, Dr. Foster, Anthony." "Yes, we've spoken with all of them," Catherine smiled. "But they all insist the heart of this program is you and your bond with Thunder." Dr. Williams looked thoroughly pleased. "So as the American Therapeutic Riding Association is interested in turning our training method into a national pilot program, Tyler. They want to document, standardize, and share it with therapeutic riding centers across the country." Tyler's heart raced. What had started as a personal reunion with his horse could now help hundreds of children throughout the United States. "That would be amazing," he managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. "The best part," Catherine continued, "is that you'd be credited as a co-developer. At 13, you'd be the youngest consultant in the association's history." In the months that followed, Tyler's life became a whirlwind of activity. Documenting the method, technical visits, filming for educational materials, all while keeping up with school and his responsibilities in the local program. The Bennett family's small property also flourished. Margaret and Claire's homemade jams and preserves, now sold under the label Grandma's Treasures, became a regional sensation. Michael, using the experience he'd gained in Europe, modernized production without losing the artisanal touch that made their product so popular. One May morning, nearly a year after Tyler had reunited with Thunder, he was woken by the unusual sound of vehicles pulling into the property. Looking out the window, he saw 3 cars parking in the yard, including a van with the logo of a regional TV station. "Tyler," his mother called from the living room, "there are people here to see you." Still groggy, the boy hurried through his morning routine and went to the living room, where he found his parents chatting excitedly with a man he recognized as the host of a popular local farming show. "There he is," the host exclaimed when he saw Tyler, "the young man revolutionizing therapeutic riding in the United States." "What's going on?" Tyler asked, looking confusedly at his parents. "We're here to do a special feature on your story," the journalist explained. "The bond between a boy and his horse that's changing the lives of hundreds of children across the country. We don't get stories like this every day." The film crew spent the day at the farm and the ranch, documenting Tyler's routine, his interactions with Thunder, and the groundbreaking work in the therapeutic riding program. To Tyler's surprise, children from all over the state arrived, with their parents to share how the program had changed their lives. Among them was Olivia, now much more confident, who spoke effortlessly about how she'd overcome her fear of horses thanks to Tyler's method. "I used to have nightmares about horses," she told the camera. "Now I dream of becoming a vet like Dr. Heather." Another child who gave a moving testimony was Michael, a 10-year-old boy with autism spectrum disorder who had been in the program from the start. Michael couldn't make eye contact with strangers before, his mother explained, while the boy proudly demonstrated how he could now guide one of the horses around the arena by himself. Therapeutic riding brought him into the world in a way conventional therapies couldn't. Sarah, a 70-year-old woman who'd suffered a stroke and used the program as part of her physical rehabilitation, moved everyone with her story. When the doctors said I might never regain movement on my left side, I fell into depression, she said, her voice trembling. The connection with the horses, the rhythm of their movement, it gave me back not just my mobility, but my will to live. Anthony, who had initially been so skeptical about letting Tyler near Thunder, now spoke with pride about the transformation he'd witnessed. In 30 years of working with horses, I've never seen a bond like theirs, he said, pointing to Tyler and Thunder in the pasture. It's like they talk without words, Doctor. Williams, usually reserved in front of cameras, made an exception to talk about the economic impact of the program. What started as a small experimental project now attracts visitors from all over the country. It has created jobs, boosted rural tourism in the region, and shown that inclusion isn't just a social issue. It can also be a sustainable business model. His daughter Heather added, "More important than the numbers are the transformations we witness daily. Every child who overcomes a fear, every adult who regains movement, every family that finds hope. That's priceless." "I never imagined we'd come this far," Heather remarked, watching the unusual activity at Clear Springs Ranch. "Neither did I," admitted Tyler, observing Thunder calmly interacting with a girl with Down syndrome. "All I wanted was to have my friend back." The media exposure brought a wave of recognition and new challenges. In the weeks following the report, the Bennett family's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Families from across the United States sought information on how to join the program. Institutions wanted to implement Tyler's method, and even a publisher proposed a book telling the story of the boy and his horse. "This is too much for a 13-year-old, worried Margaret, seeing her grandson overwhelmed by sudden fame. "He's not alone," assured Claire, who had naturally taken on the role of managing requests. "We're here to filter and organize everything." One particularly hectic afternoon, after politely declining an invitation to a national TV show, Tyler slipped away to the farthest pasture at the ranch, seeking a moment of peace with Thunder. Lying in the grass beside the grazing horse, the boy watched the clouds in the blue sky. "Sometimes I miss when it was just the two of us, you know," he confided to the animal. "No cameras, no interviews, no crowds wanting something." Thunder exhaled softly as if understanding. "Tyler," Heather's voice sounded nearby, making the boy sit up quickly. "Sorry to interrupt your quiet time." "It's okay," he replied, blushing slightly at being caught talking to the horse. Heather sat beside him in the grass, also gazing at the clouds for a moment. "A lot of pressure lately, isn't it?" she finally asked. Tyler nodded, relieved someone noticed. "I'm happy to help others, but sometimes it feels like everyone wants a piece of me, you know?" "I know exactly how that feels," Heather agreed. "When I finished vet school, everyone expected me to take over my father's business right away. It was overwhelming." "What did you do?" "I took a year for myself. Traveled, volunteered at nature reserves, learned different ways to work with animals." She smiled at the memory. "When I came back, I was refreshed and knew exactly what I wanted." Tyler thought about it. "I can't just disappear for a year," he said, half joking. "No, but you can set boundaries," Heather suggested. "Keep days just for you and Thunder, no program commitments, delegate responsibilities. Learn to say no without guilt." The conversation with Heather became a turning point. In the following days, the Bennett family and the ranch team restructured the program. Tyler would keep his central role, but have assistance for administrative tasks. His schedule would be respected, ensuring time for school, rest, and personal moments with Thunder. "We're building something to last," Dr. Williams explained in a team meeting. "And for that, we need to care for everyone involved, especially you, Tyler." The new structure allowed the program to keep growing sustainably. With the right support, Tyler could focus on what truly mattered: the genuine connection with the participants and the continuous improvement of the method. At the end of the day, exhausted but happy, Tyler took part in one final recording, sitting in his wheelchair beside Thunder, with the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange behind them. "To wrap things up, Tyler," said the host. What would you say to other children facing challenges like yours? Tyler thought for a moment, stroking the neck of his loyal companion. I'd say that sometimes the worst things that happen in our lives can lead us to the best places. When I had my accident, I thought I'd lost everything. When Thunder disappeared, it felt like a part of me had been torn away. But look where we are now. He smiled, gesturing to the ranch around them, helping others, making a difference. All because we never gave up on each other. And the future? The reporter pressed. What are your plans? Tyler gazed thoughtfully at the horizon. To keep doing this work, to refine the method, maybe even start a training school for young instructors so more kids with disabilities can discover they're not just beneficiaries but also leaders in programs like this. When the cameras finally shut off and the crew began packing up, Tyler found a quiet moment alone with Thunder. In the now silent pasture, under the first stars of the evening, boy and horse shared a bond that went beyond words. We did it. Buddy, Tyler whispered as Thunder rested his muzzle on his shoulder in a familiar gesture of affection. Who would have thought, huh? From an unlikely reunion to all of this. Thunder whickered softly, as if he understood perfectly. At the pasture gate, Tyler saw his family waiting for him, his grandmother, parents, and even Uncle Richard, now 6 months sober and in recovery. Standing farther back, giving them space, were Heather and her father, an extended family rebuilt from the ashes of so much loss and separation, imperfect, scarred, but strong in their renewed unity. Tyler slowly wheeled his chair toward them, his heart overflowing with quiet gratitude, for all the pain, for all the challenges, for all the tears, for everything that had brought him here, to this moment of fulfillment and belonging, and for the unbreakable friendship between a boy and his horse, who, against all odds, had found their way back to each other. The end. Dear listeners, if this journey of resilience has touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe. Share in the comments if you've ever witnessed a friendship as special as Tyler and Thunder's. Your own life story might just inspire others too.